there's something very kind of, I don't know, honest and untouched about just connecting to spirit and letting it go without being like, okay, my training said that this is the way that, that it should proceed. And then the other point that I think is so beautiful is like, so a bone that I have to pick with mediumship training is it's very narrow. And the training that's out there for mediumship specifically is really formatted in a way that you learn how to do one-on-one readings and you learn how to do big platform demonstrations, and that's kind of it. But for those of us, and this has come up in my research, and this is really the impetus for some of the programs that I'm putting out, there's not a lot out there for those of us who are just curious about mediumship. Yes, there's things out there about like manifesting and intuition, but if you're just curious about mediumship, there's not really much out there. And there's really not much out there for those of us who are opening up to these abilities after the loss of a loved one. And in mediumship development, for those who are opening up to our abilities by way of loss, we have a completely different frame of reference. We have completely different motivations. We may not ever want to sit with somebody. And also, not everybody should be. I mean, not everyone who, learns, who goes to culinary school is supposed to be a personal chef. There are multiple things that you can do with those skills. And part of it might be just for you or for you and your family. So I feel that the more that we open up to just getting curious about our abilities, and I say we like as the collective, we'll start to see, I believe, ways in which this is normalized and plays out in really incredible ways day to day, that we start to use our psychic senses, our mediumship, our intuition, in really beautiful ways across society that is the own flavor that each of us have. So maybe for you, it's part of the work that you do as a podcaster and as an advocate and as a grief advocate. And it's like, I can speak to this, and this is why that opened up. Maybe for me, it was the research and the research side and the education side. Who knows? I work with a writing coach, for example, who's a psychic, and she taps in and uses her intuition in helping me understand like my writing, and that's what she does with her clients. And so, and people who do like
That's incredible.
yeah, right? I mean, there are ways that we channel, like composers do that in their writing of music. And so there are really beautiful, unique ways, I think, that we can all tap into our gifts. And we already are doing so probably without even being conscious of it. But I think the more that we're encouraged as a society to start developing what is innately, intuitively ours, then it starts to come out. And then when it comes out, then we're all really living our paths and our soul purposes.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful that you're creating a container, because I agree that there's not a whole lot of outlets for somebody who's just curious to learn more for their own use, their own understanding even, before there is no like in between step, right? You're either like, you're total novice and you've had a couple experiences personally that you recognize were something, and then you're taking like a full-blown training, at a level that's like intended for people who are going to offer it professionally. And on the one hand, like, I do 100% appreciate those programs exist, as I'm sure you do too, because being a medium who has done one-on-one sessions, you fully understand and appreciate like the level of integrity, of ethics, of even standardization to some extent that is necessary to give credence to what is a very real profession. But yeah, kind of going back to your example before about languages, like not everyone who learns how to speak a second language is meant to be a translator, right? Like some people just do it because they want to be able to like travel in that country and check around and see what's up. So I totally agree with that. And it's beautiful to be offering that, because it is hard, the gap. I feel like right now the only service right now is a book, right? That's like a low cost investment that you can read, but it's still kind of very isolating. And not that people who are doing a different program aren't going to be self-motivated, but I think it's a different level of self-motivation when you're not getting any feedback. You're just, one-way information receiving. But I also think that it speaks to the progression of like consciousness on a whole in the whole world, that there are these very intense professional level programs that are fully developed out and have been around for some of them for decades, because that is like what was out there, those people on the fringes basically that were taking and were interested in it for that specific purpose. But now, as our consciousness level is getting raised and more people are wanting to just know for their own information, I mean, I think that's just beautiful that we're now in a place that there is a demand for a program like yours. And I think it's just going to keep growing, just keep moving more and more. And yeah, and how incredible will that be someday when, maybe in a couple decades from now, but when it's almost like commonplace to be like, oh yeah, I got a message from my grandmother last night and it was beautiful. And people just talk about it openly, and it's not this weird closeted, experience that you're having. So, yeah.
I agree. I do think we're moving there. It's almost like I'm being a mental health professional and a social worker. It's like where we were even 10 years ago talking about therapy. It was still hush hush. I mean, still to some extent it is a bit taboo, but much less, especially in post-pandemic worlds. But we talk about it. We talk about things like trauma. And social media has also helped with that. I think our generation has helped with that. We're very vocal about it. We're reducing stigma and shame around the issues that we're talking about. I mean, even me vocally saying my husband died by suicide, I mean, it's still not okay in some circles to say, but it definitely wasn't okay 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And then to say, as a mental health professional, I've also gone to counseling. Like, of course I have. A medical doctor goes to a medical doctor, a dentist goes to a dentist. Like, of course we do. But to talk about these things in a way that it's almost like as another human being, it's like, oh, wow, that's okay. Okay. Maybe that works for me too. I totally agree with you that in a spiritual sense, and talking to our loved ones and communicating with our loved ones and having this other orientation about life and the world and being and consciousness, 100% is going to be different in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.